extraterrestrial life on planet Earth. One of the things you said in an interview, you talked about a conversation you had with a U.S. admiral. They tell me something's moving at hundreds of miles an hour underwater, as large as a football field underwater. This was a documented case, and I have an admiral telling me this stuff. What do you believe exists on Earth in terms of extraterrestrial life, and what have you seen proof of?
Well, there's some things I've seen proof of that I can't discuss, and I've urged the White House to disclose these things. You know, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars researching something, and then you have one group telling us they don't exist, and I have the best pilots in the world telling me, Tim, this thing was 14 feet from my canopy, and he did this, and I've seen things that I wish the public could see. There's just a lot of unknowns. And again, they tell us they don't exist, but then they issue redacted reports, and they're still studying. Almost every one of our alphabet agencies has that. And we had testimony that said they have a recovery unit. Now, what are they recovering? I'd like to know. It's our tax dollars. We have a right to know. And when government thinks that we can't handle what's going on out there, that's when government's gotten a little too big, and we need to cut their wings off. And right now they're spending, our Pentagon has got all this dark money. You have the alphabet agency studying these things. One group will tell us they exist, the other one doesn't. I just think it's time that we have total disclosure. And you all in the press ought to be for transparency and disclosure. I don't see a problem with that.
You know, I've been on the Oversight Committee and the UAP Task Force to try to identify and disclose. In fact, I don't mind saying I've been reaching out to Trump's campaign and to his policy team, trying to get them to consider UFO disclosure.
What have they told you?
Well, do an executive order on that. And I think that Chuck Schumer, it's one thing I think Chuck Schumer and I can find an agreement on is that the American people, really the world, deserves to know this.
The power of the presidency is amazing. But if you're not going to use it for something like this, then what are you going to use it for, right? So I think at a certain point, this is where my frustration with this, having been in the trenches doing this, is trying to make some sense out of this for 35 years. I started my project in 1990 when I was 34. I'm 69 now. So you get into this question of, well, will it be another 80 years before this comes out in any effective way? We're going to sit on our hands? Well, if not now, when? And if not this president, who? And if not the Congress, who else? I mean, you're going to let Russia or China take the lead on this?
They won't.
No.
Neither one of them will. Nobody will do this.
Well,
the only
we better. Hey, here's a punchline. I hate to interrupt you. I have 3 separate people, don't know each other, that are in comm centers, communication centers, where somehow they have intercepted traffic communications, non-human intelligence craft, where because at the rate at which we have reverse engineered ET technology and now have turned it into weapon systems against them, there's a red line that we're going to cross. And in other words, if we don't fix this problem, there are forces out in space way more powerful than anything, and certainly more powerful than the president. And am I saying this as a warning? I am. Because I know for a fact that we have crossed that red line, and we are using technologies that are extraordinary against these people. And at what point? Now, they're not hostile, but they're also not going to let humans, who are a bunch of psychopaths and sociopaths who run these programs, and they are, just run amok out in space and be a threat to assets that are not human. So we have this very egocentric view of humans, like we're just the be-all and end-all, like Mr. Burchett was saying, Congressman Burchett. It's a big universe. And, you know, we're going to have to learn to live together in peace on the planet, but also in space. Because when you cross the nuclear threshold, and that's what we've done with these technologies, you're talking about systems, when they're weaponized, that are much more destructive than a thermonuclear weapon. And those are in the hands of the worst possible people. They are not under the control of we the people and our representatives or the president or Congress. So anyone who thinks it is or very badly.
For the first time ever, details coming to light about a secret FBI working group that allegedly investigates unidentified aerial phenomena, or also known as UAPs, UFOs. It's the first time that the group has ever been publicly disclosed, according to Politico. That claim coming from former Navy pilot Ryan Graves. If you remember, he was the first active duty pilot to come forward about regular sightings of UAPs. We heard his whistleblower testimony in front of Congress last year. Graves says the FBI working group is made up of more than a dozen staff who, quote, spend much of their time tracking down UAPs.
So these agents have taken upon this responsibility as a part of a bottoms-up approach in order to understand what potential illegalities might be occurring with objects that are operating within our airspace that we're not properly tracking or mitigating. The FBI has both a law enforcement as well as a counterintelligence responsibility. So having objects that are harassing military bases as well as the general public over our national airspace squarely fits within their domain of responsibilities.
Yeah. I think a lot of Americans are listening to this segment right now, seeing this headline saying, what, FBI agents, looking into UFOs? How long have they been a group, Ryan, and tasked with investigating them?
Well, my understanding is that they kicked off this work in about 2020. We've been engaging with them for the past year and a half. And what that primarily looks like, we receive a lot of reports at Americans for Safe Aerospace, some that might have serious national security implications. And so with the permission of the pilots or the witnesses, we've referred the pilot to interview with these groups such that these agents can then follow up on the reports, gather additional information, talk to additional witnesses, and look for gaps in our national security that they can address for the nation.
Let me drill down on that. You say you've reached out to the White House about it. What have they told you?
So right now I'm chasing down the proper person, but I've been reaching out to people that are in Trump camp that I know.
So what's your sense? What's your feeling? What happens here? With disclosures, transparency, maybe declassification of any kind.
I think Trump he sees himself as the people's president, and I think that if the American people, and there's an outcry for people that want the information, I think that Trump will deliver, because he sees his role as working for the American people and not the other way around.
If that is put forward, declassified, a report, whatever, what do you think we would see on that front?
Look, I hope we get some answers one way or the other, but whether we go back to what really happened at Roswell, what if there was any attempts to cover that up, every event that we've been investigating, that the UFO community has been investigating, I would like to get answers to those events.
I got to leave it there. Congressman Eric Burleson on the House Oversight Committee, Republican from Missouri. Again, thank you for the time, sir.